5. They think of as a guy to replace Jay Novacek down the line if things work out well, as Ernie Zampese sitting next to Barry Switzer as they're on the phone right now discussing the situation in the Dallas War Room. Kendall Watkins, a tight end who they drafted earlier in the round out of Mississippi State, they see him as the road grader, more of the blocker. But Eric Bjornson, a guy who can help out and back up Jay Novacek. They still believe that Corey Fleming and Kevin Williams will fill the wide receiver spot vacated with Alvin Harper's departure. Let's go back to Chris Berman now in New York.
All right, Chris, thank you. Ken Irvin, defensive back, Memphis State, has been chosen by the Bills. And while Dallas selects, Denver will be on deck. First time they've made a pick in this draft. So Bronco fans, this is your time. We'll be back.
So, once upon a time, a Volvo 850 Turbo meets a BMW 325i, and the BMW says, I have 189 horsepower. And the Volvo says, that's nice, I have 222. I can do 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds. And the Volvo says, that's nice, I can do it in 6.3. So the BMW says, I'm the ultimate. And the Volvo says, really?
It's a breakthrough that brings us to a new level of performance. In the rain, in the snow. It even saves gas. Michelin's new energy tires with radial XSE technology. It's science that goes beyond magic.
From across the seas, Beck's delivers the grand tradition and taste of the German art of brewing. Beck's, the #1 imported German beer.
You're beautiful. You're everything I ever want.
If you love your car, what you put on it should be more than just a wax. New Zymol Natural Liquid Auto Polish protects your finish with beeswax and shines with rare Brazilian carnauba. Safe, naturally derived ingredients, so pure, powerful, perfect.
Oh, so beautiful.
New Zymol Natural Liquid Auto Polish.
The graduate.
So, Nikki, any plans now that high school's over?
You know, it's gonna work for me. Not if you're smart.
You know what I think you should do? Stay close to home.
You got plenty of time to work. Take the first thing that comes along, Nick.
Give Anthony a call. So what are you gonna do? Well,
I'm going to study nuclear propulsion or satellite navigation. In the Navy.
Oh, great.
Way to go, Nick. For more information on the high-tech skills that can help launch a career, call 1-800-USA-NAVY.
Welcome back to the draft in New York. The Denver Broncos slogan is keep the picks in 96. Because in 95, 24 hours after the draft has begun, we're about to hear from the Broncos. They lost their first and second and third round picks in various deals. Mike Pritchard, now remember, Pritchard hurt, never played last year, so he's going to be as if they got a new player for this coming season. Gary Zimmerman, that cost them, among others, a second round pick this year, which the Vikings took. Pritchard had cost them a 1 and a 3, and the deal to bring Ben Smith from Philadelphia to Denver cost them a third-round pick. So it's not as if they just like left them in, outside on the street and forgot about the picks. They got players for it. But this is now the first draft pick for Mike Shanahan, as head coach of the Denver Broncos, who had a very busy offseason. You can see the ones that brought in. A couple from the Niners, a couple of backup players, Musgrave and Easy Ed McCaffrey, the wide receiver. Vance Johnson back. He still runs. He's one of those guys that 10 years later, he's still fast. Aaron Craver, running back from Miami. Broderick Thompson, who started for the Eagles last year on the line. Schlereth, who was a starter on the Super Bowl team, the Redskins, in '91. So those are the guys that came in along with Michael Dean and James Jones. So they've improved their tackle position wholeheartedly. Mike Lotus, Britt Hager, linebacker, started for the Eagles. I mean, these are all the guys that have come in. These are some of the ones that have left, including some on the offensive line. Ted Washington left to go to Buffalo. And then you see a couple of them. Mike Kroll gone to the Giants. So lots new in, some out. And now the draft board for the Denver Broncos. Let's get their pick in the 4th round.
There has been a trade involving this selection now on the board. The Minnesota Vikings are on the clock.
See, they don't want to do it.
Denver has traded this choice to the Vikings For the Vikings' 4th-round choice, the 121st overall, and the Vikings' 6th-round choice, the 196th overall. So Denver has traded this selection, which has less than 20 seconds remaining to make it, for Minnesota's 4th and 6th.
Well, like we said, if you're a Bronco fan, you can go back now to the refrigerator and get something. The Broncos will be picking, they have dropped 10 spots, but they do pick up another pick in the 6th round. So, you know, hold the phone for Denver. They will pick this year in the draft. Minnesota now has the pick, and with so much suspense from this pick, we might as well go up and get it. Which, will they get a new 5 minutes? No, the clock expired.
The Minnesota Vikings on the trade just from the Denver Broncos select quarterback from Kansas State, Chad May. Quarterback from Kansas State, Chad May. The New England Patriots are on the clock on a trade whose terms we'll announce in a couple seconds.
All right, Joe, so Chad May, a guy that they're not, some players, and I know how you feel about this, they don't feel Chad May may be tall enough, but he certainly has a major league cannon for an arm.
Well, I think that's one of the criteria. If you're not necessarily that big, you better have a strong arm, and certainly Chad May has a strong arm. As a matter of fact, in talking to a lot of the scouts around the league, they think he may have had the strongest arm in the entire quarterback group. But the only thing they're a little mechanical thing. He has a little hop step that he uses when he comes away from the center. See how he hops? That means he's going to lose time in his setup. That's something that can be mechanically worked out. And another thing is he throws all arm. If he doesn't learn to step into his throws, his arm will be shot at the end of training camp. So there are a few little things that he's going to have to work on. The hop step, you know, is obvious, but great athletic ability in the pocket, great presence to hold his feet in the All-Star game and make the throw. With every young quarterback, there are little things that you can work on. I don't see anything that Chad May does that can't be corrected or modified to make him a better quarterback. That's the good thing about him. The one thing that you can't teach young quarterbacks, you can't teach them or give them strong arms. He brings that to the table, and I think that's very important and is going to be a big plus for him. He's just got to learn to protect that arm strength by using his legs when he steps into his throws.
All right, well, we've now had, Mel, 2 quarterbacks go in each of the 4 rounds. Obviously, McNair and Kerry Collins in the 1st round, Todd Collins and Cordell Stewart 2nd round, Stoney Case, Eric Zier 3rd round yesterday. Today, Rob Johnson, Jacksonville, and now Chad May to Minnesota.
Well, when you look at Chad May, look at the stats, almost a 60% completion percentage there, 2,500 yards. You're looking at 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for a guy that would gamble, would take some chances down the field. He wasn't a guy that always dumped it off to J.J. Smith, the fine running back at Kansas State. Does have the arm, as Joey alluded to. What he needs to do is I think, work on decision-making at times. Of course, he has a good feel for the pocket, even though he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not the type who's going to, take it outside and scramble for 10 or 15 yards. He needs an offensive line in front of him. The height factor is what played into it as well, but he has an over-the-top release. He has some good points and bad points. The thing that also hurt, Chris, was the struggles late in the year, which started on Christmas Day in the Aloha Bowl against Boston College, and then he didn't set the world on fire at the Combine, and then that height factor kind of was magnified.
All right, so Chad May to the Vikings, and we'll visit with Dennis Green shortly. Let's go down to Andrea Kramer in Jacksonville. Andrea?
Well, just one quick little note here, Chris, if I may. Keep in mind with Minnesota, we know, Denny Green said all along, Steve McNair was his man. He lost him yesterday to Houston. Apparently, Minnesota offered most of their entire remaining draft to try to move up to Jacksonville's position this morning to be in a position to get Rob Johnson. That obviously didn't work out, so now they end up with Chad May, and I'm sure that Denny will make him work, but it's obvious how much they wanted a quarterback, and heir apparent to Warren Moon. Finally, they get their man in Chad May. Right now, let's head to Chris Fowler and Mike Gottfried in Connecticut.
All right, Andrea, Mike Gottfried joins me. Chad May, a guy that a lot of teams were talking about before the draft. Up in Buffalo, where I was yesterday, they mentioned Chad May as a guy to their local media, bluffed a lot of people, then ended up taking Todd Collins. The thing they didn't like about him was the footwork. You saw him play a lot this year.
Well, the negative I heard was, talking to coaches, he got a lot of balls knocked down at the line of scrimmage. But you have to remember Kansas State's program. Chad May was a difference maker there. They went from a team that was a doormat to a team that was in bowl games. Give him a lot of credit. Played in a good system, very accurate quarterback, very strong arm.
Guy who the Saints took with the 10th pick in the 4th round, Damian Jeffries, the defensive end, good pass rusher out of Alabama, a guy who came to Alabama as one of the best tight end prospects in the country. Of course, no tight end since Ozzie Newsome has done much at Alabama, so they shifted him to defensive end. Is this a pick you like? Here's a guy who lasted longer than you thought.
I really like this. Bill Kuharig did a nice job there in New Orleans.